Hi, I'm Grant Fuhr, 5-time Stanley Cup champion, and I'm coming on the You Only Touch Greatness podcast.
If you're looking for a mug, perhaps a hoodie, head on over to IOnlyTouchGreatness.com.
This is the hottest place. Big name interviews in Vancouver with Ryan Hayes and Big Mike.
This is I Only Touch Greatness podcast with Ryan Hayes and Big Mike.
Ryan Hayes and Big Mike are taking over the podcast scene in Vancouver. Get down or lay down. Lay down. Lay down.
Yeah, this is Big Mike, by the way, and I'm Ryan.
Hey, Grant, thank you very much for taking the time today for us. We really appreciate it. It means the world to us.
No problem.
And
We're just going to ask you a bunch of questions about hockey, obviously.
It works for me.
Yeah.
What made you get into hockey in the first place? And did you play any other sports growing up?
Let's see. What got me into hockey? Probably a love of the game. I mean, I saw goalie equipment right out of the gate and thought it was kind of cool. And all the kids I grew up with played, so I thought it'd be a good idea and fell in love with it right out of the gate. As for other sports, I played a lot of baseball as a kid. Right, that seemed to be the two things. During the summer, you played baseball. During the winter, you played hockey.
Okay.
And you were raised in Spruce Grove, Alberta, correct?
Born and raised.
Yeah. What was life like growing up there?
You know what? It's a great spot. And I think to get raised somewhere in a small town where the kids, kids got an opportunity to play as much sports as we wanted. I mean, I think that was the fun part back then is you didn't have to play with just one team. You could play with 3 or 4 different teams, and it was a big benefit.
Okay. And any nicknames, and why'd you wear jersey number 31?
Oh, I've had Coco as a nickname forever. I got that in junior from a couple of veteran guys we had out in Victoria, and 31's the number I had in Victoria, so we just kind of took a shining to it.
Okay.
Hey,
good choice.
How'd you come up with that nickname? I had it later in my questions, but
you know what? I'm a little better tan than most of the guys, so that's where it came from.
yeah, and I saw that note as well. You played out west here in Victoria. You went to the Memorial Cup, correct?
I did my second year there. First year we lost in the Western Final to Regina.
Okay.
Can you take me back to 1981 draft day when you were drafted 8th overall to the Edmonton Oilers?
For me, it was an exciting day. I mean, I went down to the draft. I think it was in Montreal that year. So actually roomed with Al McInnes at the draft. And, every kid hopes to be drafted, but you don't know really whether you will or you won't. But to get drafted, and for me, it was extra special because I got drafted and got to come home and play pro. So kind of a cool moment.
Did you know they were interested? Like, did you talk to them much before the draft?
I had no idea. I hadn't talked to them at all. That was the funny part. Back then, you didn't have the draft interviews. So,
how did the draft go back then? Like something behind the scenes?
You know what? My agent at the time, had 3 or 4 clients that went down to the draft, and you go to the draft and you just hope to hear your name called. So at that time, I had no idea where I was going in the draft or even if I'd get drafted.
And then obviously 1983, you went to the finals, happened to lose that one. What learning lessons came from that?
You know what? For myself, I didn't get a chance to play in the finals in '83, so it was neat to see a Stanley Cup final. But at the same time, it's a learning experience, and I think as a team we learned. I mean, the unfortunate saying goes, you got to lose to learn how to win. So we had some growing lessons. I mean, the Islanders were successful, very disciplined team, and they paid a steeper price than we did, and we learned that.
And Andy Moog was the goalie, I believe, which my stats are correct on this one. Andy Moog was the goalie, and you were backing him up that year.
He was, and Andy played great.
Yeah,
it's just the Islanders were a little bit better than we were at that time. Probably a little more experienced than we were at that time. We were still pretty young and fresh around the ears, so we had a little bit of growing to do.
And then 84 is when Sather chose you in the playoffs. Is that correct?
That was my chance to have a run at it. So, I had a run at it my first year and didn't play very well. I mean, against the Kings, I think I lost my first one 10-8, won a couple 3-2, lost, what did we lose, 6-5 in overtime, and then lost 7-4. So short-lived playoff. But no, in '84, I get a chance to redeem myself a little bit, and obviously things went pretty well.
Yeah, that was your first Stanley Cup.
Yeah, it was the start of a good run.
Hell yeah, it was. I remember those even as a kid from the watching on TV. Everybody was an Oilers fan in the 90s or the 80s. Sorry, excuse me.
You know what? It was a great time to be an Oiler. I mean, one, we had a great group of guys that just enjoyed being with each other. We like to have fun, and we like to win. So it's a pretty good combination.
Might as well go with the next one then. What was it like playing with Gretzky?
Awesome. I mean, one of the more fortunate guys. I get to play with them in Edmonton. I played with them in LA. I played with them in St. Louis. I get to coach with them. So kind of spoiled on that side of things.
Oh yeah, I got those questions coming up here a little later. But hey, you were in net, I believe, for the Steve Smith goal, right? When he scored on
that would be me.
Oh yeah. What was the thoughts in the dressing room after that? Did you guys want to kill him, or I know it was just a fluke mistake, but
you know what? It's in the game of hockey. You get good bounces, you get bad bounces. For us, that was just one of those bad bounces, and if anything, it let us refocus and made us better the next year to try and eliminate putting us in a position where a bad bounce could beat us. So another learning experience for us.
5-time Stanley Cup champ, obviously, but didn't one stick out more than the other to you?
No, you know what? They're all special in their own way. I think that's the fun part because different things happen at different times over the course of the year, and you do it with different players. So they're all special in their own little way.
Hey, right to this, what's it like being the first Black person to win the Stanley Cup?
Yeah, obviously a great honor. I mean, I just feel fortunate that I'm kind of the benefactor of guys like Tony McKegney, Willie O'Ree, Bill Riley, Mike Marson, Val James, guys like that. They kind of went through the hard times through the 50s, 60s, 70s. I mean, I was lucky enough to play in the 80s and play in Canada, so I didn't have to deal with a whole lot. So I'm kind of the benefactor of their pain and suffering, if you want to put it that way.
Hopefully not, but was there much racism when you were going through them?
You know, you get called the odd name here or there, but for the most part, no. I mean, I was pretty fortunate playing in Canada. I think there was a lot more of a U.S. issue at that time. But at the same, it's there. It's just you try and ignore it. And with the group of guys we had, we were pretty insulated.
Okay.
And I mean, you guys had Semenko out there for a couple of years, so I wouldn't want to be messing around.
Well, that was the beauty of our team. We could play a game any way you wanted to. I mean, you got Semenko, you've got Tony Jackson, Kevin McClellan, Marty McSorley, or you could play the skill side of it if you wanted to. So we could play it any way any team wanted to play.
Oh, yeah, and you got the Gretzky and the Curry and the coffee, and yeah, you guys were loaded. Those were some fun years to watch hockey.
So you had the best tandems always when you were in Edmonton, at least. First Andy Moog and then Bill Ranford as well, correct?
Yep. I mean, I was lucky. I played with great partners everywhere I went.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the fun part is I had Andy to start with. I actually had Ronnie Lowe, who taught me a lot my first year. Then I had Andy. who obviously without Andy, I wouldn't have been as good as I was because he pushed me to be better. Then once we traded Andy, I had Billy Ranford, another great goalie in his own right. I go to Toronto, we get Felix Potvin there. I go to Buffalo, I get Dominic Hasek there. I go out to LA and Kelly Rudy's there. St. Louis, we had Bruce Racine, and then we traded for Johnny Casey.
Yeah.
And then in Calgary, I finished with Freddie Brathwaite. So all great partners.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Those are some great goalies.
Yeah. And like the next 10 of my questions are just taken out there.
Do you have any pregame?